good. How are you doing? I can't see all of you. There are a few thousand people beyond the car park down there, so just wave, scream hi to one another. Hello. Thank you so much for braving the rain this evening. I just want to give a heads up to people who are directly in front of the TV cameras. Could you please just not put your umbrella up, otherwise we won't be able to get any of this on telly. It's my pleasure to be your host this evening, and such a genuine honour to be standing here on behalf of the Labour Party. It's completely surreal. For years, like many people my age, I felt completely and utterly alienated from politics. I didn't feel like there was anyone who spoke out for me, and Parliament felt worlds away from anything to do with my day-to-day life. But today, we've all gathered together because finally, someone has come along who's inspired us to fight for what we deserve as citizens of Britain. Someone we can actually relate to, and someone who can change everything for young people. That man, in case you haven't guessed from my amazing t-shirt, is Jeremy Corbyn. In just 3 days' time, we have an opportunity to elect a party that will stand up for all of us and transform this country into one of hope, not fear. Under the Tory government, university fees have trebled, while our National Health Service has been sent into crisis. The number of people sleeping on the street has more than doubled, and cuts to schools are denying children the education that they deserve. Labour will scrap university fees, reinstate the education maintenance allowance, and introduce a real living wage for young people. The choice in this election is clear. You can vote for the Conservatives and the cowardly Theresa May, whose Tory Britain will serve the privileged few at the rest of the country's expense. Or you can vote Labour and see Jeremy Corbyn lead this country to a brighter, fairer future which serves the many. Please vote Labour on June the 8th. Right, it's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Ian Lavery. Can we give him a round of applause?
Colleagues, comrades of the North East, supporters of my good friend Graham Morris, in fact it is Graham Morris. Geordie's for Corbyn. Jezak's the one for me. The Daily Mail is. Comrades, colleagues, what a fantastic Geordie Northern welcome for Jeremy Corbyn and his team. And you know what? It makes me so proud to be standing on the banks of the Tyne with some fantastic people in front of me, looking to support a Labour Party who can actually, and who are terribly proud of having a manifesto for the many and not the few. Is there anybody here actually thinks that the Conservative Party is a party for working people? I cannot hear you. Because let me tell you, it's a load of nonsense. Comrades, you need to just look at the record of the Tory government in the way in which it's treated people of our brilliant region. Look at the way in which it smashed the mining communities, closed the pits, closed the shipyards. It is in the process of destroying our fantastic public services. We want no lectures from a Tory government about who's the party for working people. Because, comrades, only Labour can stand up for working people. This manifesto is brilliant. It's something which Labour Party members have wanted for decades, man. You can knock on people's doors, and when they say, Ian, what do you stand for? We can tell them that again. We stand for hope and aspiration for the many and not the few. We represent ordinary, hard-working people, not the people at the top, not the bangers, not those with influence and the wealthy in the communities. We look after everyone. That's what's brilliant about Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party. Just think for 1 minute what the Tories have done with regard to the introduction of the bedroom tax. The attack on the welfare scheme, the welfare benefits of many people. The way in which the scapegoat immigration, absolutely unbelievable, comrades. There shouldn't be anybody, and I mean anybody, in this region, in this country, supports a bloody Tory party. But look what we've got on offer. Because that's what it's about. It's about an offer to the people. We as Labour Party MPs and councillors and as a party, we haven't got the divine right to govern. We need to be putting an offer to the people, and by goodness what an offer we have got. Look at the jobs and security. We'll banish and outlaw 0-hour contracts. Come on. We lift the public sector pay cap, which is so important. It means that those heroes of ours in the public sector will get a pay rise. Did anybody see Theresa May the other week on the Marshall? That's the strong and stable person. More like weak and wobbly. So, comrades, did you see what you said about nurses? She understood that they've had a 14% pay cut since 2010. And she thought it was a complex issue because people were using food banks. What an absolute disgrace. This is the Prime Minister in our fantastic country. Let me tell you, the reason that nurses are using food banks is because they cannot afford to put food on the table for themselves and their children. Colleagues, this is 2007. Labour Party manifesto on jobs, on the NHS. We'll take the privatisation out of the NHS. We'll support the nurses and the doctors. We'll ensure that the waiting lists in A&E and for all types of services will be greatly reduced like they were under the past Labour government. We'll fully fund the NHS with a great consideration focused on mental health as well. What a fantastic manifesto pledge it is to give all primary school kids a nutritional meal every working day. We've got too many people in this country with too much money. We want to make sure that there's equal opportunity for our kids in our schools. Colleagues, the Tories have said that they'll withdraw the school dinners and they're going to introduce a breakfast pay of 6.8 pence per breakfast. Not a thimbleful of Rice Krispies. That's what they think, and I'm being serious. That's what they think of this fella here. That's what they think of all these kids and all these people in this audience. You know, it's an absolute outrage in 2017. We've got a national education service ready on the 9th of June, which will get rid of tuition fees, restore EMA, and we'll fully fund an educational system which is fit for every kid in this country, not just for the select few. And of course the NHS, which I've already mentioned. Colleagues, I'm winding up. I'm going to tell you something. I've never heard anybody shout encore there, by the way. I'm winding up by saying this is a golden opportunity. It's a one we cannot afford to miss. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to bring fairness to this country. And if we miss this, well, who knows what might happen. Get out there. There's still 3 days to go. Talk to people on the streets. Talk to people wherever you go and tell them they must get out there and vote for Labour. Vote for Jeremy Corbyn. Thank you. Come on. Come on. It gives me great pleasure to introduce the next speaker, the Police and Crime Commissioner for Northumbria, Vera Baird.
Colleagues and comrades, in truth, I wrote the first words of what I wanted to say to you tonight with tears in my eyes, because 2 weeks ago I walked across London Bridge in the middle of a crowd, just like the one that was there on Saturday, and I feel real proximity, as I know you do, to the horror of the sudden death that happened there, and that there was no point to it, and that it seemingly has no end. Our hearts are with the suffering now. But you know, even about tragedy, Theresa May is wooden, inappropriate, and dishonest. Enough is enough, she said yesterday. She's been the Home Secretary for 6 years. Fully in charge of our terrorism effort, and look where we are. What is not just enough, but too much, is how she's used that role not to boost our safety, but to join the bandwagon of austerity and slash the police and slash the security services. Now, I can't make a direct link between those cuts and terror, but read The Independent. Read The Independent. There's an armed policeman who makes exactly that link today. But I know that neighbourhood policing are the eyes and ears of our streets. They build relationships with all communities. They reassure, they meld people together, and they deter, and they learn a great deal of intelligence, which would be hugely helpful just now. Do we need fewer, or do we not need more eyes and ears on our streets? Yet 20,000 cops have gone, 13% of the police, 1 in 8 police officers on the scrap heap, no longer at work, and not just neighbourhood policing. 1,300 of those were armed police. I bet the people in Borough Market on Saturday night, saved by 2 armed officers shooting the terrorists, are glad Theresa May had not got to 1,302. Here, we've lost 900 police, 1,000 police staff, 23% of our funding, and it's selective austerity because Surrey has lost just 12% of its funding. And Thames Valley has lost just 1% of its police force. Well, the press reckon that Labour women cannot count. But I can tell you that 900 Northumbria police officers lost out of 4,500 is more than 1%. Jeremy's Labour Party government will recruit 10,000 police officers. You heard it here first. We all say, bloody well, yes, we need more police. Two more small things. This is the second Tory woman leader who does nothing for women. She says she's concerned about domestic violence, but she's strangely isolated from the truth. Refuges are closing at risk as close to us as in Sunderland. Many women can't find a place when they try to leave. There is no legal aid to secure the welfare of your children if you do leave. Inequality. 86% of Tory cuts have hit women the hardest. They scrapped our Equality Act duty to produce a gender pay announcement about gaps. Actually, women could have caught up between 2010 and now, but they scrapped that, and women are still 19% behind in the pay gap. 400,000 women sacked or victimised for pregnancy with no chance of redress because tribunal fees are as high as the sky. An impossible situation. And the WASPy women who've worked their lives to see the state pension just deferred at the very last minute. June 8th is the anniversary of Emily Wilding Davison dying after the Derby in 1913. Women owe her much more than they owe this Prime Minister. I call on my gender. Women, let's vote her out. Young people, you want education maintenance allowances if you want to stay at school. You want free tuition to achieve your potential. You want no 0 hours contracts. You want a living wage. You want a chance to get good housing. You want hope, don't you? Hope! Theresa and the Tories, that's a crap name for a pop group. They're not at home with ordinary people. She launched her battle bus up here in an aircraft hangar in Northumberland with a list of chosen people who I'm told were to a person wearing yellow wellies. We're here. You're like us. We're like you. We go forward together. We tackle everything together. We need only a few more thousand votes to do it. Let's switch to the Corbyn calendar and we will make June 8th once and for all the end of May. Your fantastic MP, Ian Mearns.
How are you, Gateshead? Well, it's a fantastic pleasure to be standing here in my own constituency as the candidate for the constituency of Gateshead. And by the way, what a pleasure it is to have that as a weapon in my armoury going on the doorsteps. For the many, not the few. Do you know what it is? I'm terribly sad to say this, but in 2010, when I was the candidate, and in 2015, when I was the candidate, in all too many conversations, I ended up having to say, well, look, please vote for us, because really, they'll be much worse than us. But I tell you what, this manifesto proves that we can be so much better than them. And one of the things which is constantly missed by the press and the media in this country is that we have been dealing for the last 7 years with a totally incompetent government. Incompetent. Look at the mess of our education system. The next time we see a Tory policy based on educational evidence will be the first time we see an education policy based on evidence. Look at the mess in our NHS. Look at the crisis in our prisons. Look at the problems on our streets. Terrorism rears its ugly head again in the United Kingdom. And whose watch has it been on? It's been on Theresa May's watch. And yet more. Here in the northeast of England, we've been in the sad situation where public investment in our transport infrastructure has been at times 250 times greater per person in London than it has been here in the northeast of England. Are they really trying to tell us that the people of London, the great citizens that they are 250 times more deserving than us here on Tyneside? But that's the way it's been working. Let's have a future fair for all, every citizen of the United Kingdom. And with their education policy, let's have an education policy which gives every single child the very best start in life, not just a hand-picked, chosen few. Let's have an NHS which is properly invested in, so we don't see anymore those dreadful queues, those dreadful waiting lists, and actually people dying waiting for treatment. Let's do away with that. Put that into the dustbin of history. Now on Thursday, the young people that I can see in front of me here, and what a fantastic pleasure it is to be working with so many young people. Young people who can actually see that we can make a difference. Politics can work, and that it can work for the many, not just the few. A future where young people can actually get a fair education, have every opportunity, get their educational maintenance allowance, go to university, or go into proper skills training for proper apprenticeships and proper jobs. That's a future we can all buy into. And then when they get to work, we can actually have a wage, a living wage for every young person, not just those over 25. So comrades, let's seize the opportunity. Tonight we have in Gateshead our democratically elected leader of the Labour Party. On Thursday, let's make him our democratically elected Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Comrades, for the many, not the few, thank you very much. And I now welcome to the stage a very good friend, a fantastic candidate for North West Durham, Laura Pidcock.
Good evening, everybody. I come to you straight from the streets of North West Durham, where we are working day and night and day to get rid of the cruel and callous Conservative government. A government that has plunged our people into poverty, who assign blame to the hungry, who look upon those who cannot work as liars, who veil the decimation of our public services as a political necessity, who have lied to us time and time again that austerity is necessary for everybody but the wealthiest who get tax cuts. They've taken police off our streets, they are starving our NHS of funds, and they are absolutely destroying our education system. The Conservatives are not, will never be, a party for the working class or the north east of England. We have had enough of their contempt. We've had enough of their arrogance. We've had enough of them looking down our nose at us as though we are second-class citizens, and we will not allow them to humiliate us any longer. Because we know, don't we, that everything that we have suffered at their hands is not an accident, but has been a political choice. The rape clause was a choice. Sanctions, a decision. The public sector pay freeze, a decision. The bedroom tax, G4S in our prisons, selling our council houses, letting the steelworks and the mines close were all a decision. On the 8th of June, it's our decision. We will make a choice. Because we have the opportunity, don't we, to reject the politics of division and hate, to vote to build back our beautiful communities, to invest in jobs and industry for the North East, and to have a future that is not plagued by fear. And to every single young person here who has been failed by this system, please take your anger and your passion with you into that ballot box and vote for change. And don't ever let anybody tell you that you're being boring for being political, or to be quiet and stop posting things on Facebook. Occupy every single space with your politics. Friends, let us not pretend. The odds are massively stacked against us. We don't have friendships in the media, in the papers or on the TV channels. We don't have rich donors, do we? And we're not connected and we're not prepared, to lie our way to power. But, and this is a really important but, we are the majority. We have thousands of activists, and fundamentally we can be charged up, powered up by knowing that it is us who are on the right side of history. It is we. In the next 3 days, I am begging you to have conversations in the workplace, on the streets, in the supermarket queue, to get out there and have conversations on the doors, to come and campaign with the Labour Party, and to say loud and proud that yes, you are voting for the Labour Party and for our wonderful leader, Jeremy Corbyn. I honestly do believe that we can do this, so let's get out there, let's fight back, stop the cuts, and kick the Tories out. I'm just going to give a second speech. Now we have the absolutely wonderful Dave Anderson.
Bloody hell, the absolutely dropped Dave Anderson. I want you to do us a favour, everybody. Just have a look around. Look behind you, look over the water, look up the river. And think what it was like 20 years ago this week, when we come into power. This place was a wasteland. When people tell me the Labour Party and government never do nothing for you, look at this. This is a tremendous example of what we can do. I remember in the Christmas of the miners' strike, going into that flour mill that they were closing down. We've been on strike for 9 months. We're asking if they could help us out so we give the bands a bit of a Christmas. They were in a worse state than we were. That's the world that they want to take us back to. That's the world that Theresa May comes from and believes in. 10 years ago in 2007, Gordon Brown didn't call a general election. It was the biggest mistake he ever made. Theresa May, this year, called a general election. With your help, it'll be the biggest mistake she's ever made. And the reason why she's miscalculated so badly is arrogance, it's lies, and it's fear. The man before that told us, don't worry, if I lose the Brexit vote, I'll be staying. He had the parachute on at 12 o'clock on the night after the vote. He was out the door. Disgraceful. They lied about the deficit. They've told us the economic miracle. Economic miracle. They've borrowed more money in 7 years than we borrowed in every year we've ever been in power. It's terrible. And she lied about not having a general election. We know why she's called this general election. She thinks that we were on the ropes. But what she didn't account was the fact of how we... you're right there, comrade, it is us. But also, it's the lad who's leading us. Because they don't know how to handle somebody who tells the truth. They don't know somebody whose politics come from the left wing and not the west wing. And when people say, oh, don't do that, Jeremy, what if? He says, I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. And that's what the people of this country have led to believe. And I want to nail something to the wall tonight. The disgraceful attacks on Jeremy because what he was doing in the 1970s, 1980s and 1990s in talking to people in Ireland and other people around the world in Central America and in other parts of the world in the Middle East. He was reaching out to people. He was taking risks for peace. And when they slagged Jeremy off for doing that, they should also slag off Margaret Thatcher. I have no problem doing that, you can believe me on that one. But John Major actually went up, in my estimation, hugely when he sat down with Sinn Féin behind closed doors. They would have annihilated the man if they found out. But if he hadn't, we might not have been in a position when Mo Mowlam took over in Northern Ireland for us to get peace within a year. And one of the biggest disgraces is what's happening in Northern Ireland today, where the Tories have just clearly leaned towards the DUP and completely isolated the nationalist community, which is why we face a situation that even after this election this week, there's still an election to be won in Northern Ireland for the Assembly, and it's bad news if that doesn't get up and running. Jeremy wants the world run on peace. How can you argue against that? People talked the other night, they were all, when are you going to press the button? Never. We don't want to press the button. We're all dead if you press the button. I've got to say, comrades, I've been quite happy to see Paul Nuttall's performance over the last few weeks. It's been magic. Get him on more. But I am worried that some of the poison, what they've done, will seep into some of our traditional roots. I'm delighted that my comrades and Durham Mines are here tonight. I know there's men in those communities in places like Bishop Auckland who are seriously thinking about not voting Labour the first time in a generation. I say to them, don't make that huge mistake. There is no difference between these people and Thatcher. There's no difference between these people and the people who ruled this country in 1926 until the depression of the 1930s. They want us in our place, and our place is doffing our hats. We're never ever going to do that under Jeremy Corbyn. And for pensioners, she's been caught out. Her arrogance has really caught her out. She decided to take on the pensioners. Why on earth would you do that? And you know the rate, I was sitting today, if you think about it, it's 45 years since Thatcher was the milk snatcher. If May gets in next week, the same people should be the pension pincher of exactly the same people. What have they got against these folk? I want to tell you why I'm here tonight more than anything else. There's three young girls at the front here today. Lauren, Molly and Holly from the Thorpe Academy in Wrighton. It shouldn't have been the Thorpe Academy, but 2 weeks after the 2010 election, Michael Gove stole £80 million from our council that was to give us 5 brand new schools in Blyth. And these young lasses have gone through an education for 7 years in porta cabins, substandard conditions, not knowing where the teachers are going, terms and conditions being ruined because of that decision. It's their future we're here for tonight, so make sure you do the business for them. One more thing I want to say. Every one of us has felt appalled by the terrorist attacks over the last few weeks. Every one of us hugely values the people who, the ones who run into those places when the rest of us are running away. But if I hear one more Tory minister or Prime Minister praising these people, I'll scream. Because for 7 years, they've undervalued them, they've underpaid them, and they've undercut them, and it's a disgrace. And if we get in, it'll be those people who we will look after first and foremost. I want to say this dead clearly. Any public sector worker in this country who decides not to vote for us, then I really do not know what planet you're on. You're sensible, educated people. You know what's been going on. You know what's happened in this council. 48% of our budget's being took away from us. It's no wonder we're struggling. It's no wonder care homes are closing. It's no wonder people can't get the service they deserve. That's what happens when you have a Tory government. But whatever happens on Thursday, I hope we win. I hope we win big time. But one thing we can't go back. Jeremy Corbyn, John McDonnell and the rest of his team have completely changed the conversation in this country. People are now talking about the things our grandparents, our parents talked about collectivism, about doing the right thing for all of us, about the health service. And that is the message that will go forward regardless of the vote on Thursday. Every one of us has got a job to do. Talk to your families, talk to your friends, talk to your neighbours, bore the pants off them, get them, make sure they vote. And I'll say one last thing to my colleagues in the Parliamentary Labour Party. When you go back down there next week, get behind this man. Stop letting them down in the way some of us did in the last election. Thanks very much. It's now a great privilege for me to introduce Jacob Onwurah, the MP for Newcastle Central.
I hope to be the MP for Newcastle Central, and I know that Dave Anderson, he will be so missed in Parliament if I do get there. He's a fantastic MP for Blaydon. Hey, isn't it fantastic to be here? I mean, yes, it is raining, but we're in Gateshead. We've got Newcastle on the horizon. And do you know what else is on the horizon? A Labour government. But it is still only a possibility. To make it a reality, we have got 3 days when you have to get out there, talk to everyone you know, persuade people to get out in the rain. It's probably going to be raining on Thursday, to get out and vote Labour. Yeah? And I'm so proud we're having this rally here in the industrial heart of our country. Because unlike some Tory MPs, I don't have 6 jobs, you know, but I have had 2 careers. I was an electrical engineer for 20 years before coming into Parliament. I was inspired by the great engineers of the North East, like Stevenson, like Armstrong, like Parsons. That is Rachel Parsons, the world's first female naval engineer from across here. And I was an engineering student when Margaret Thatcher, thank you, she said that engineering was dead, manufacturing was dead, we were going to be a service economy, we were going to keep our hands clean. And she made her dream come true. Most of my engineering career, much of it was spent abroad because our great industries here were broken and held back by a combination of malice and neglect. And greed, that's true, because instead of building things, they created an economy, a financialized economy that generates wealth for a tiny global elite and holds everyone else back. So I was door knocking in Benwell the other day and I met this lovely young mum, Carol. She'd left school at 16. Yeah, you might know her. She'd left school at 16 and now she wanted to train to be a forensic scientist. Whoa, yeah. And I said to her, fantastic, another woman in STEM. But the West End Job Centre, they said, no way. Don't aim so high. You're too old. At 24, you are too old and too poor for a free education. Find a minimum wage job. Don't dream of anything more. Carol is being held back by this government. And if you're a small business in Sunderland, trying to find some money to invest in your business, you're being held back. If you're a steel worker in Redcar, told that your skills don't matter anymore, you're being held back. If you're a public sector worker, you haven't had a pay rise for 7 years, you're being held back. But we're going to change that. We are the only ones that can change that. The Tories can't unlock the potential of our country. They don't believe in the potential of working people. They have a plan to shore up the wealth of their mates by privatising our public services. So our NHS, our schools, our social care, like our railways, they're just another financialised, debt-driven market for the Tories. I mean, they talk about a magic money tree, you know. They're the ones who have slashed our public services whilst doubling the debt, and they're 10 years late on a 5-year plan to reduce the deficit. Talk about financial incompetence. They must have a magic money pit that they're putting all the money in. So we, Labour, on the other hand, we've got a different vision for our future. An innovation nation with 1 million good, well-paid jobs, education and health, free at the point of use. And fair, inclusive and sustainable growth. Now, who do you think it is that's inspired this change in our national story? Shall I give you a clue? I think you've got the idea. It's the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. The champion of the many, not the few. It is
Thank you, Gateshead. Thank you, the North East. Thank you, those that have come across the river from Newcastle. The bridge unites us, the politics unites us, the future gives us hope in unity. Can I say a big thank you to all of you for being here tonight, braving the rain, which is very unusual in these parts. And thank, if I may, all of my team, all of our Labour head office team, and all of our team in Labour North here in the North East in Newcastle for all the work they've done in this incredible election campaign that we've put together. When this started 7 weeks ago, almost 7 weeks ago, they said, well, yeah, okay, what are your policies? Then we came out with our manifesto, for the many, not the few. And what we've done is put together an offer to people of a real alternative to the arid future that a Tory government will offer us. We've put together something that I think is quite remarkable. We're saying, in quite blunt terms, those that caused the financial crisis of 2008-9 have left us with 7 years of cuts, 7 years of closures, 7 years of frozen wages, 7 years of underfunded schools, hospital waiting lists, and so much more. And they've sapped the spirit of so many people. What we're saying is, it's time for a change. And that change is, yes, on some policy issues, and I'll mention some of them in a moment, but it's also a change in how we do our politics. How we relate to each other, how we talk to each other, and how we support each other and give hope to each other. And what attitude a government takes in that. This region has suffered from the ravages of the Great Depression in the 1930s, suffered from the ravages of Thatcherite economics in the 1980s, seen the brutality of the way the miners were treated, seen the brutality of privatisation and the loss of jobs in so many different industries. But one thing, in a sense, that sums it all up, sums up what this government and other Tory governments have been about. When the steel industry got into a crisis because of dumped steel, because of a lot of other issues, and those that thought they could asset strip the industry and Redcar got away with it because a Tory government let them get away with it. I'll tell you this, a Labour government wouldn't stand by and see an industry destroyed, wouldn't stand by and see those jobs taken away, wouldn't stand by and allow those communities to suffer so much. We instead would invest, and investment is what is the key to it. And I think we should start with investment for the future. The future is our children. The future are our young people. The future is theirs and what they can contribute to make this world a better and safer place to live in. So we start at the very beginning. Start with children in preschool. Our offer, 30 hours a week for every child in every part of the country in preschool facilities, free. So that, as in life we have to do things together, let our children enjoy those wonderful preschool years together. Their first memories will be of doing things together. Children from all around, children from different backgrounds, learning and doing things together. That surely is what makes humans strong and makes them support each other. And then you look at the crisis facing primary schools at the moment. Head teachers desperate to know what to do, desperate to know which teacher they're going to have to dismiss, which teaching assistant they're going to have to ask to leave. In secondaries, which subjects they're going to have to close down and cut off. And then they ask the government, where's the money coming from? What are you doing for us? And they say, well, there's a new funding formula, it's perfectly all right. If you haven't got enough money, well, have a collection amongst the parents. Well, I'm really, really sorry about this, but it's simply not on. We pay our taxes that there be education for all children. And if you rely on the parents that can afford it to fund the schools that can raise the money, look what happens a few years down the line. Some schools have got a lot, some schools have got a lot less, some children have got more, some children have got less. Sorry, government, you are totally wrong. You've got to put the money in for all children. But you know what? Children going to our schools must learn, of course. Must learn all those important subjects, of course. But it's very hard to learn when you're hungry. It's very hard to concentrate when you're hungry. The Tories, as Ian pointed out, propose to take away the limited number of free school meals being offered by the coalition government and replace them with breakfast at around 7 pence a head. I don't know when was the last time any of them went out to buy a breakfast. I have never seen a breakfast you get for 7 pence. It's an outrage, a disgrace and an insult. So what are we going to do? Something a bit different. A very bit different. We are going to make sure every child in every primary school gets a school lunch every day, taken with all the other children. And it will be free and open to all of them. So again, that experience of doing things together, which I am very keen on and very proud of. And then children in schools have wonderful creative abilities and imagination. The brain is like a sponge waiting to suck up ideas and waiting to give us all their hopes and joys and imagination. It is, of course, about learning the subjects that we all know about, but it's also about creativity. And that's why I am very proud of the inclusion in our manifesto of a pupil premium for the arts. So every child in every school in every school will be able to learn a musical instrument. And again, it has the effect, that wonderful imagination and effect. And you know what? We're also going to create a quite big creative arts fund for the whole country, so that wonderful places like the Sage, wonderful places like the theatres will be properly supported. But above all, that creativity in music means that our musicians need a place to rehearse and places to perform. And we understand that, and we're doing all we can to improve those facilities. And then later on, as young people go through the education career, yes, their ideas grow and their demands grow and their needs grow. But their choices should not be restricted either by parental income or the postcode they come from. And so we will bring back the education maintenance allowance so that youngsters will not be constrained in going on to further education. And then those that want to go to university, those that want to go to college, should not be put off by the idea of a massive debt at the end of it. My heart bleeds for students who are going to be in such enormous debt because of the levels of fees at the present time. We've looked into it very carefully, and we've decided it's in the interests of the individual that they achieve the best in their lives. It's also in the interest of all of us that everyone achieves the best in their lives. And so we will be abolishing student fees and bringing back a maintenance allowance at university, because I want us to have a society where people can achieve. I see this as an investment in the future of all of us. Unlock that potential, unlock that creativity. Chi was talking earlier, wonderful remarks she made about the abilities of engineers, of women engineers, and what they've achieved. They all struggled to achieve those things. What a waste it is, what an absolute waste it is when we prevent large numbers of our young people achieving what they are able to do because we don't support them to do it. We all lose, they all lose, we are all poorer as a society. Achievement enriches all of us. And I'm determined that we'll have an education system worthy of the name, and there'll be a national education service to ensure all of this is delivered. One of the greatest achievements of my party when it's been in government, and I believe of this country, is the principle that healthcare, free at the point of use, is a human right for all of us. It's not the case in all parts of the world. If you were a crowd in the United States, you'd be looking at each other and wondering what level of health insurance you had got. Whether if you got cancer you'd be treated or you wouldn't. Whether you could go to your doctor or whether you couldn't. Well, that's not a choice that is available in this country because we have an NHS. But I tell you this, if this government remains in office, what will be the problems in the NHS in 5 years' time? How much will the debt be in each hospital? What level of wages will be paid to skilled doctors, nurses and technicians in hospitals already having had several years of frozen wages? It's just not acceptable that the NHS should be treated in this way. So John Ashworth on day one will suspend the sustainability and transformation plans. And look again at the whole issue of our National Health Service. Look again at it and ensure it is properly funded and invest the money it needs over the first Parliament of the next Labour government, because I want there to be that health service there for all time. Naiba Van said it would last as long as there are folk with the will to fight for it. We're folk, we've got the will, we'll fight for it. But there are other aspects that have got to be looked at, and at this very moment, I'm sure you know some of them, there are 1 million people waiting for some kind of social care. Often elderly people, sometimes in great distress, sometimes those with very special needs or disabilities needing that help. 1 million people waiting. That is simply wrong. And it's all very well for a Tory government to try and do one-off deals with this county council or that council or another. Sorry, that is not acceptable. What we will do is immediately put emergency funding into social care to remove those people on the waiting list from the waiting list to being supported and cared for, and set up a national care service. Because at the moment there's something wrong. If you suffer from a cancer, you get treated correctly, you get supported correctly, and you don't have to pay for it correctly. However, if you suffer from dementia and you need that care, it's not the same at all. I think we have to start looking at it differently. We support education, we support health in all its aspects. I'd also just say this, that Ian mentioned it earlier, Ian Lavery mentioned it earlier, the question of the mental health crisis across the whole country. Let's collectively agree we're not going to make rude remarks, jokes, or stigmatise those people who are going through stress and mental health conditions. We're going to reach out and support people instead. And that in government we will properly fund our mental health services so that the support is there for them, and in schools and colleges as well, so that we again have that inclusive approach to our world and our society. But an election is about choices. It is about the services that I've mentioned, and there's many more, including the housing programme we announced today, where we'll be building a very large number of council houses, as well as affordable homes for sale, as well as giving people some degree of protection in the private rented sector. These things are all absolutely crucial. But it's also about our economic development. Redcar was left to rot by the Tories. So many other parts of this country have seen almost no investment since the coal industry was shut down by Margaret Thatcher and her friends. And the opportunities, yes, the correct response, the opportunities for investment have been missed out. The opportunities of government investment are not fairly done. And so, despite George Osborne's claims to have created the powerhouse of the North, some of you seem slightly sceptical about this idea, but no doubt he'll write about it in the Evening Standard sometime. We will establish, and John McDonnell has made this very clear how we will do it, that will be a national investment bank, 10 years, £500 billion spread across every region of England and in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. So it will ensure proper investment, and I absolutely support a new Crossrail, a Crossrail of the North from Newcastle across to Manchester. Because it is about investment. It is about investment in high-tech industries and jobs. It is about investment for the future of all of us. Look at what Northumbria County Council was doing through Arch. Look what other local authorities have done through their enterprise systems. Surely we need a government that has the same approach of investing in our futures and our economy, not leaving that to somebody else. We will not do that. And so we will also negotiate a tariff-free trade access to the European markets as we leave the European Union. An awful lot of jobs across the northeast depend on trade with Europe, and we will make sure that there is that trade access there. But this election also is about how we divide up the cake, how we divide up our national resources. Public sector workers on a pay freeze. 6 million people earning less than the living wage. 1 billion people on 0 hours contracts. Many people going through the most appalling stress because of a combination of benefits frozen or cut, disability benefits frozen or cut. Many people go through the most terrible stress of simply trying to survive. Whilst at the other end of the scale, there seems to be a magic money tree. That magic money tree magically cuts tax for the biggest corporations, seems unaware of the money that is siphoned off and put in tax havens around the world, and unconcerned about the lack of investment in the day-to-day services that we all need and support and enjoy. And so, yes, there will be tax rises, but not for 95% of the population. Those with the broadest shoulders will be asked to pay that the rest of us might benefit from the decent services and investment that we need. And that is what I think this election is fundamentally about. It's about the kind of world we want to live in. The role of all of us in a creative, supportive community that does things together. Look at the way communities can come together in the face of adversity, support each other and change things. Look at the wonderful gatherings in Manchester straight after that appalling atrocity that was there. Look at the gatherings in London tonight in exactly the same mood. It is about communities coming together and making sure that we support each other. And so, in this election, in the last few days that we've got available to us, just think for a moment of the choice. Think for a moment of the choice before this country. Re-elect this Tory government, and it is a choice between Labour and the Tories, and we're not doing deals with anybody, we're fighting this to win. We're fighting to win as a Labour Party to form a Labour government. 5 more years of a Tory government, maybe another 1 million more children living in poverty. How many more libraries closed? How many more school classes overcrowded? How many more people living in desperate poverty? How many people at the end of their tether sleeping on the streets of our towns and cities? How much more can we take of this? The answer is we cannot, we should not, and we will not. And so, what I ask you to do is understand how things ever happen in politics, how big movements of people do create things. Trace the history of the growth of democracy in Britain, and you trace the history of the growth of social protection, of support, of services, of development, of opportunities for all children, all adults. You trace it that way. Our rights come from those that suffered a great deal in the past. Our right to vote, the women's right to vote, the disability movement, gay rights movement, all those movements contributed to what we have in this country. And so we move to an election in 3 days' time. And when you go to vote, think very, very carefully about it. Think of the offer the Tories are giving you, or think of the kind of society we can create together. Because it isn't just about electing people to office, it's obviously what they do in office, but it's what all of us do to take all those ideas forward. The creative economy, the growing economy, the education system, the health system, the social care system, justice and decency for pensioners within our society. The Tories would set young against old. The Tories would set region against region. We don't do that. We bring people together. Look around you in this crowd tonight. Look at all of us here today, in our thousands here in Gateshead. We're young, we're old, we're black, we're white, we're gay, we're straight. We are a crowd together because of what we want to achieve. And so, in those 3 days left, don't just knock on doors and ask people to be sure to vote for us on Thursday and go and remind them to vote on Thursday. That is absolutely crucial. But it's also about framing the debate. There are cynics who calculate these things in politics and say, well, Labour said this, Tories said that, yeah, okay. Now, what did all that mean? Well, it means this: you have to understand that we down here really fully understand this whole system, and all those people out there that are turning up at Labour rallies, they don't really understand it. Well, I tell you this, we absolutely do understand it. We understand what this popular movement is about and the kind of world that we can create. So when you are having those conversations, ask this question: is it right that old people, too many, living in poverty? Is it right that waspy women have been so badly shortchanged by this government? Is it right that so many young people are not achieving all they could? Is it right that we have a government that seems incapable of even writing a letter to Donald Trump and telling him he's wrong on climate change and environmental destruction? So, let's do something different. Let's have those conversations about the kind of world we all want to live in. The kind of unity that will achieve that kind of world. And do everything you can in these last 3 days to deliver that victory for all of us in the ballot box on Thursday, to give our children and our old people and those in between the security they need, the jobs they need, the pay they need, and above all, the economy that we all need. Tonight here in Gateshead in the rain, we've shown just how much support there is. We've shown just what unity there is to deliver this programme. I want to say thank you very much for being here. Thank you to all those that supported. Thank you to all those that have gone before. And thank you for having the ability to put hope over fear, to put unity over division. Thank you very much, Gateshead. Thank you.